Some bike companies build empires, others build legends. Boss BMX didn't sell billions of bikes, but they did manage to weld themselves into the DNA of the sport. It's the story of one man, Carlo, the number one boss man, Lucia, who went from motorcycle frames in Oakland to some of the most iconic BMX builds of the time. Welcome to the channel. If you don't know the drill by now, we are here looking at some of the lesser known history of a lot of these brands. I am going to get to athletes, don't worry, but right now we're tackling BMX and have been for a while. This is mainly a BMX channel. But if you do like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, share the videos. All of that always helps with the algorithm, keeps me doing these videos, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Born in 1943, Carlo started welding frames in the late 60s, not bicycles, track racing motorcycles. His company was called Boss Racing Frames. The BMX crossover came around 1969, when racer Dave Busby, riding for Panda Racing at the time, asked Carlo to design the Panda Elite frame. At the same time, Carlo's son Dean was racing BMX, which nudged Boss Racing straight into bicycles. He packed up shop, moved to East 14th Street in Oakland, California, and bam, it's now Boss BMX. And again, I am just one man doing these videos, all the research done with them, so I really try to frame these as this is the individual's story to tell. So keep that in mind. Some of this is hearsay, but I have to include it. So there are a lot of sources that say Boss BMX made frames for Panda. But to be clear, I couldn't really find facts of what Boss made for Panda. And Mr. Kim, who helped create Panda BMX, claims that Boss never made bikes for Panda, and it was actually the other way around. Now, stuff like that comes up. I try to see both sides of the story, I try to be objective, and I can see both sides being true. Panda at the time was a pretty large company, and one of the first to get mass-produced bikes out of Asia. So Mr. Kim proposes, why on earth would we get a small fab shop to make bikes when we are getting them by the container load from Asia? Okay, but I can also see that racers like Dave Busby wanted a premium bike. Dave went to Carlo to make him his own personal Boss race frame that he then slapped Panda stickers on and slung that thing around the track. So again, think what you will, but I tend to believe both sides of the story. But by 1980, Boss was making frames, forks, cranks, and handlebars. They even supplied other companies like Patterson Racing and Champion. You could be riding a Boss built frame at the time without even knowing it. And the riders? Stacked. Cecil Johns, Frank Post, Ronnie Anderson, Steve Veltman, Charles Townsend, a lot of Hall of Famers. Through line, they all trusted Oakland-built Boss frames to carry them to the finish line. So at this point, Boss has got a reputation, making high-quality custom BMX race frames. And in 1986, Carlo struck a deal with Panda. Panda had distribution and cash. Boss had reputation. Together, they expanded. Complete bikes, freestyle rigs, even scooters. Panda funded a national factory team to chase ABA titles. This further adds to my interest in their relationship pre-partnership. One source claims that it was in fact a partnership in '86. Another source claims it was an outright purchase of the name in 1986. Either way, Carlo and Panda were now working together, for a while at least. But by 1989, it started to fall apart. Panda kept the Boss name rights, while Carlo moved on to a new label, or old, L&S Creations. Here's where it gets a little bit messy. L&S stands for Lucia and Son. Carlo had been using that name since his motorcycle days, even before BMX, and in his words, Boss isn't Boss without L&S, because L&S created Boss. So to me, it kind of sounds like there was a little animosity with whatever happened between Panda and Boss. But either way, Boss had a good reputation, sold it to Panda, Carlo moved on. The frames and geometry of L&S, though, they were identical to earlier Boss designs. The only difference was the logo, but as knockoffs and copycats started popping up, Carlo doubled down. He trademarked number one Boss Man and began stamping L&S on frames, stickers, pads, and jerseys to make sure no one could fake it. To him, Boss wasn't just a brand. It was a fight to protect the emblem he had drawn decades earlier. Meanwhile, the Panda rights they didn't last. In the early 90s, Brent Patterson, Jesse Gaimon, and Dan Davis bought Boss back. Under them, riders like Steve Veltman carried the flag from 92 to 95. But the landscape was changing, and if you watch my videos, you know what's coming. The late 90s. Overseas production lowered costs for big brands. By 2000, Boss shut down. But in 2016, Carlo, now in his 70s, resurfaced in Lapine, Oregon. Still welding, still building, still the #1 boss man. And on his site, Creation by Bossman, he sells frames like the Pro Frame Set, Bad Boy, Boss Hog, and Primetime Steve Veltman signature models. His claims, same as it ever was. Boss BMX bikes are well known for their quality. They are better than the best. So what's the legacy? Boss frames carried Hall of Famers. They blurred company lines, building for Patterson, Champion, and maybe Panda. And through it all, one man defended the emblem he created back in Oakland. From motorcycle frames in '69 to ABA podiums in the '80s, to Oregon garages today, Boss BMX proves that legends don't need to dominate, they just need to endure. Carlo, if you ever watch these kinds of videos, please comment below. I would love to get in touch with you, maybe get the full story of Boss. There's a lot of high points with this brand, but it's hard to really narrow down the nitty-gritty. I love the story of something like Boss because they're very similar to something like Giant, but on a much smaller scale and with BMX. So Giant bicycles, if you know, they started out making bikes for other people. They made good quality Taiwan bikes. They made them for Schwinn, then moved on to making them for Trek and Specialized. And then they were like, let's just make our own brand because we make some good stuff. Boss was kind of the same way. So do I believe that they made bikes for Panda? Yes, I do. I think, and this is just from me, so I could be completely wrong, this is not facts of the video, but I think probably Boss was making high-end bikes for Panda's race team. And Panda was mass-producing stuff and putting it in department stores. This is very commonplace, especially in the 80s and 90s with road biking. There were all these big brands like Huffy that went to the Olympics that got another really good high-quality company to produce their race bike. So in my head, that's probably more what happened, but you know, this is, again, another story of a motorcycle fabricator. You know, we got that in a lot of these stories. We got a kid, and we got a dad who really wants to make a better product for his kid who is into BMX racing. The only kind of thing that's added to it is Dave Busby coming and wanting a bike built by Boss. So there you have it. That is the story of Boss. Check out their website. I'll put a link down below. He's still welding, still fabricating. It's still up. Yeah, so that's what I got for you guys. Stick around the next video. You guys might want to be here for. It's going to be fun. All right, catch you guys later. Love you all. Bye-bye.